Images recorded by City of Arvada employees tell the story. The storm event of September 2013 washed out trails, roads, and creek banks.
There was just no place for the water to go but to run off.
And though it isn't likely that Arvada will see another similar event soon,
It was a 500 to a 1,000-year rain event.
it's still uppermost in the minds of the city's utilities department.
It'll actually take several years before everything gets back to what we consider to be normal.
In the meantime, the city is studying what happened to begin planning how to avoid a recurrence. What we know?
We had flooding on Van Vibber Creek, Ralston Creek, Leiden Creek, and Little Dry Creek.
The edges of Ralston Creek were hit hard.
We had a little mini flash flood that came through.
It impacted Ralston Reservoir, owned by Denver Water, and then the dominoes fell.
The floodwaters then came over Ralston Spillway, poured down into Arvada Reservoir, filled us up, and then the water poured over our spillway down into Ralston Creek.
It left a trail of erosion and debris and dumped washed-out silt into the Arvada and Ralston reservoirs. The silt changed the chemistry of the water in the reservoirs, our water supply.
When that happened, it interacted with chemicals that had deposited in the pipelines over many, many years. And that material softened, started to come off.
And resulted in discolored water. Unpleasant looking, but never unsafe to drink. It was mostly manganese and iron buildup. With more than 500 miles of water lines in the city, utility crews chased that cloudy water, as Sullivan puts it, for at least 6 months, systematically flushing most of the lines during the winter months. The water is mostly back to normal now, and the reservoirs have made an amazing and faster than expected recovery.
We've had a number of studies come in, look at the reservoir itself, examine what's going on with the biological processes and the chemistry and all that, and it's all looking actually very good.
Damage to the nearby landscape was immense.
We're on the inlet to Arvada Reservoir, and this area received a tremendous amount of water that flowed through it from Ralston Reservoir, from the rain event. So this entire area that we're at now used to be a nice little meandering stream, had a lot of vegetation in it, and it was just completely torn out. What you can see now are a lot of rocks and sand and such.
Quite a different scene from last September. Trees were uprooted, and a water line running through the area was torn out too.
It was buried 5 feet below the creek, and it was completely torn out and uprooted. We had parts of it just in the air.
It was replaced, buried deeper, and reinforced.
Then we built into it some more spill structures, if you will, so that the water will flow over here and not cause as much damage if it ever happens again.
2 washed-out trails in this area had to be replaced too. Leiden Creek around Indiana Street was hit hard as the Croat Canal topped its banks.
Indiana is a state highway in that area. It had been washed out. The state had to come back in and repair it.
That took about 3 weeks. An 18-inch water transmission line parallel to Indiana washed out. And another near flood-ravaged Quaker Street washed out too.
So both of those streets and water lines had to be replaced.
It's taken countless hours and many hands, from the utilities department to the streets, parks, and public works departments.
So we've had our street crews out, removing a lot of this debris, trying to get it out of the way for the spring runoff that's coming. We're also trying to repair a number of the banks. That's involving a lot more heavy-duty equipment, and we're trying to do that so we don't destroy the trails that have been recently reopened.
With most of the emergency repairs complete, the city turns to long-term recovery and to assessing how to avoid repeat events. 2 studies will help. One is from Water and Earth Technologies.
They looked at everything, gave us a plan as to just where the water went and how it traveled. We're using that as a basis now to do additional studies, much more detailed, that'll get into what kind of structures should we be building to mitigate flooding in the future.
The study concludes that it wasn't a typical summer thunderstorm and flash flood event, but several days of record-breaking rains from September 9th to the 13th that added up. Another study by Urban Drainage and Flood Control tackles flood control issues for Leiden Creek, from about Alkire Street to the west.
The study there will examine what needs to be done to put in flood mitigation and what is the cost of that. We anticipate it's going to be several $million.
Arvada will look for money in its own budget, plus seek money from urban drainage and flood control and the county. And it will look at state and federal sources, too. Meanwhile, the city continues to stabilize creek banks that could face more erosion without some help.
We're trying to get in there to seed them, to cut them back, to make them less vertical, and where we can do some armoring so that they won't erode.
It'll take years and again finding money in city budgets. For now, all eyes are on the skies and the comfort that most summer thunderstorms aren't likely to turn into the kind of record-breaking drenching rains that created the flood event of September 2013.